Sometimes a mystery doesn't need a witness, a victim, or a crime scene. Sometimes all it takes is a single accidental click of a camera shutter to capture something that shouldn't exist. On a sunny day in 1964, a father took a simple photograph of his daughter in a grassy field. It was meant to be a childhood memory. Instead, it became one of the most debated anomalies in the history of photography. There was no one else in the field that day, no one standing behind the child. Yet when the film was developed, a figure appeared, tall, white, and wearing what looked like a futuristic spacesuit. Was it a ghost, a secret government agent, or a traveler from another world who stepped into the frame for a fraction of a second? Welcome to the Unknown Archive. Today we analyze the pixels and the history of the world's most mysterious photo, the Solway Firth Spaceman, May 23, 1964. Jim Templeton, a local fireman and amateur photographer, took his wife and young daughter Elizabeth to Burgh Marsh, overlooking the Solway Firth in Cumbria, England. It was a quiet, peaceful afternoon. Jim claimed there were only a few cows and sheep in the distance. The weather was perfect. Jim took 3 photos of Elizabeth sitting on the grass, wearing her favorite dress and holding a bunch of wildflowers. When he got the prints back from the chemist a few days later, the technician told him, "What a shame about the middle one." Someone walked into the shot. Jim was confused. He remembered the moment clearly. There was absolutely no one behind his daughter, but there, in the photograph, was a figure. Rising from behind Elizabeth's head was a tall white shape. It appeared to be wearing a white suit, a dark visor, and a backpack-like structure. It looked exactly like an astronaut. In the Unknown Archive, we look at the timing. In 1964, the world was obsessed with the space race, but spacesuits were not common clothing for a stroll in the English countryside. Jim took the photo to the local police. They were baffled. They sent the negative to Kodak, the world's leading experts in film at the time. Kodak put the negative through every test imaginable. They checked for double exposure, light leaks, and film defects. Their conclusion? The negative was 100% authentic. The figure was actually there when the light hit the film. The story went viral. It was picked up by newspapers around the world. But then things took a turn toward the strange. A few weeks after the photo was published, Jim Templeton was visited by 2 men in dark suits. They drove a black Jaguar and claimed to be government officials. They didn't call themselves Men in Black, but they acted exactly like the legends. They referred to each other only as number 9 and number 11. They insisted on being taken to the exact spot where the photo was taken. They asked Jim hundreds of questions about the weather, the cows, and the spacemen. When Jim told them he didn't see the figure at the time, the men became angry. They accused him of lying and drove away, leaving him stranded on the marsh. Why would the government care so much about a family photo? This leads us to the Woomera connection. Thousands of miles away in South Australia, the British government was testing the Blue Streak missile at the Woomera test range. On the very same day Jim Templeton took his photo, a launch at Woomera was aborted. Why? Because technicians reported seeing 2 tall, white-suited figures on the launch pad near the rocket. The technicians searched the area, but the figures vanished. When the Australian news heard about Jim's spaceman photo, they were stunned. The figures at Woomera looked identical to the one in Jim's photo. Was there a link? Were these spacemen monitoring British nuclear and missile technology across the globe? In the Unknown Archive, we must also look at the skeptical explanation. The most popular theory is the overexposed mother. Some researchers suggest that Jim's wife, Annie, had walked into the background of the shot without Jim noticing. Annie was wearing a light blue dress that day. In certain lighting conditions, especially with overexposure, light blue can appear white on film. If Annie was standing with her back to the camera, her dark hair could be mistaken for a visor, and the backpack could just be the folds of her dress. But Jim Templeton was adamant. He was a fireman with trained observation skills. He insisted his wife was standing behind him, not behind Elizabeth. Furthermore, the spaceman appears to be much taller than Annie. The proportions look masculine and the posture is rigid, like a suit of armor. Look closely at the elbow. The white shape has a distinct joint that looks more like a pressurized suit than a cotton dress. If it was Annie, why didn't Jim see her through the viewfinder? And why didn't Kodak identify it as a simple blurred person? This brings us to the interdimensional theory. Some believe the marsh at Solway Firth is a window area, a place where the barrier between our world and another is thin. Perhaps the spaceman was there, but in a frequency that the human eye couldn't perceive. Only the chemicals on the film were sensitive enough to capture the energy. This would explain why Jim felt alone in the field, yet the camera recorded a guest. The Solway Firth Spaceman isn't just a photo. It's a timestamp of a world that was suddenly becoming much stranger. Jim Templeton never made any money from the photo. He didn't want fame. He spent the rest of his life simply wondering who the man in his picture was. He died in 2011, taking his questions to the grave. But the photo lives on in the archive, refusing to be debunked. Let's analyze the Men in Black encounter again. If the photo was just an overexposed wife, why did government agents harass a fireman? Their interest suggests that the figure in the photo matched something they were already tracking. Something secret. Was it a cloaked technician from a secret military project? Or something truly alien that was curious about a little girl and a bunch of flowers? There's a second photo Jim took that day. It shows Elizabeth in a similar pose, but there is no spaceman. This proves the figure wasn't a permanent fixture or a smudge on the lens. It appeared for one frame and vanished in the next. Some UFO researchers have compared the Solway figure to the white giants reported in other encounters. Tall, silent beings that seem to be observing our development. In 1964, we were on the verge of leaving the planet. Maybe they were making sure we were ready. The overexposed mother theory is logical, but it requires us to believe that a father didn't see his own wife standing 5 feet away in an empty field. It also doesn't explain the aborted missile launch in Australia. The coincidence of two spacemen appearing on opposite sides of the world on the same day is mathematically staggering. In the unknown archive, we value the coincidence. Sometimes the universe repeats a pattern to make sure we notice it. The marsh at Berg's Marsh is a desolate, windy place. It's the kind of place where a ghost or a traveler might feel comfortable. Kodak's refusal to debunk the photo is the most powerful piece of evidence. They had every reason to find a flaw to protect their reputation, but they couldn't. The negative is genuine, they stated. That is a heavy sentence in the world of mysteries. If you look at the photo today, it still feels eerie. The contrast between the innocent child and the cold, technological figure behind her is jarring. It's an image of two worlds colliding. The old world of picnics on the grass and the new world of the stars. Did Elizabeth feel anything? Years later, she said she didn't remember anything unusual, only the wind and her father's camera. This is common in window cases. The witness is often shielded from the anomaly while the camera records it. Some suggest the spaceman was a time traveler, a historian from the future taking a snapshot of the 20th century. If so, he picked a beautiful day for it. The mystery remains unsolved. It sits between the realms of optical illusion and extraordinary encounter. Every few years, a new digital analysis claims to have solved it, usually leaning toward the wife theory. But when you look at the original print, the sharp edges of the backpack and the dark visor are hard to ignore. It doesn't look like a blue dress, it looks like life support equipment. In the unknown archive, we leave the door open for the impossible. Jim Templeton was an honest man. He didn't want a conspiracy, he just wanted a family photo. He accidentally became the curator of a cosmic enigma. The Solway Firth Spaceman is a reminder that we are always being watched, even in our most private moments. The background of our lives is filled with things we don't see. Sometimes the light hits the lens just right, and for a billionth of a second, the curtain is pulled back. We see the number 9s and the number 11s of the universe. We see the watchers in their white suits. The Solway photo remains one of the few pieces of physical evidence that has stood the test of time. It hasn't faded. It hasn't been explained away. It just is. A visitor from nowhere, standing behind a girl in a blue dress. As you look through your own old family photos tonight, look at the background. Look at the shadows. Look at the people you don't remember being there. Thank you for joining us at the Unknown Archive. Do you see a mother in a dress or a traveler from the stars? Let us know in the comments and stay curious.